respond to all your queries. The reason why I'm going to spend time is because this is the first detailed briefing we are giving on G20 to the media in Mumbai. I'd like to introduce my colleague, Mr. Nagaraj Naidu, who was our ambassador in the Permanent High Commission in United Nations, and Inam Gambhir, who's Joint Secretary. Mr. Naidu also looks after G20, and Inam also looks after G20. And Mr. Shrijan he's also from the Foreign Service. He looks after external publicity. So just be patient. I'll quickly take you through a presentation, and then you can ask me anything you feel like. So I'm doing this because I want to explain everything to you in details. Yeah. So ladies and gentlemen, actually G20 is actually the most powerful forum. It is powerful because it comprises of both the developed and the developing world. It comprises of more than 85% of the global GDP. It accounts for almost 75% of the global trade. It accounts for almost 90% of the global patents in the world, and accounts for almost more than 60% of the global population. It is powerful because it is not unwieldy like the United Nations, which has 186 countries, very difficult to arrive at a consensus. G7 is a very elitist body, but here both developed and developing countries are represented in G20. Now, G20 has had a very major impact in the past on global economic, financial issues, on geopolitics. In 2008, when there was a major global economic crisis,
in the London G20 summit, there was coordinated action and a very big package was announced by G20. You've had Basel III norms for banks emerging from G20. You've had the recapitalization of the International Monetary Fund. And on the initiative of our Prime Minister during the Saudi Arabian presidency, there was a sustainable debt package which was given out to the developing countries. So very many big things in the world have happened because of G20. When G20 takes place in India, the Leadership Summit on 9th and 10th of September, this will be the biggest ever gathering of leaders in India. There will be 43 leaders. In addition to G20, there are 9 special invitees. And there are a vast range of international organizations from UN to OECD to WHO, WTO. All of them will be represented. Now, this will be the biggest event held in India because we've had Chogam, we've had NAM in the past, but they were events for 2 to 3 days in Delhi. This is the first time that you will have G20, which will be spread through the year from 1st December to the 1st of December through the year. And it's biggest because you will be hosting this in almost every state and every union territory of India. So every state, every union territory, there's a huge, huge opportunity to transform these states, and we are trying to do that. Now, India will assume G20 presidency when there's a global turmoil. There is a major challenge because there is a climate crisis, there are slow sustainable development goal implementation which have to be implemented by 2030. So you've had 20 crore people, that's 200 million people have had job losses, 10 crore people have been pushed into extreme poverty, there's disruption of global supply chain, there's sustainable development goals, instead of progressing, have regressed. There's been a COVID crisis. 70 countries in the world are facing a debt crisis. There is a geopolitical crisis in Europe because of Russia and Ukraine, and there's a food and energy crisis. Now, a good G20 presidency requires three things. One is that there has to be a political drive and a political narrative, because it's a leaders' summit. All the leaders are there. So the political drive and the political narrative has to be there. Secondly, there has to be very good content. That is, what are the issues on which we want to arrive at an agreement, and what are India's priorities, which we'll talk about. And thirdly, how do we do this? Administrative logistics. How do we host it? Like we are hosting it in Mumbai, to what level of perfection we do it, what will be the logistics, etc. So all these three, our aim is that in all these three we do an excellent job, and these are the three pillars of a good presidency which we'll do. Now the Prime Minister has already set the narrative for our presidency. The Prime Minister has said that the greatest challenges we face today can only be solved by working together. Our first concern should be towards those whose need is greatest. That means citizens, countries whose need is the greatest, because G20 is a global body. India's G20 will seek to advocate the oneness of all. Oneness of all means that we are all, India's taken G20 presidency to a philosophically very high level by talking about its basic theme is Vasudev Kutumbakam, that is from our ancient civilization, that we are one family. The whole earth is one family, and one earth, one family, one future. That we all come from one cosmos. There may be different political systems, there may be different economic thought processes, but there may be unity in diversity. We are all part of one cosmos. And therefore, our priorities reflect not just the aspirations of G20 partners, but also of global South, whose voice is often unheard. So this is what the Prime Minister said. And he set the political narrative. And despite a challenging scenario, India has emerged as a global hotspot. We are the fastest growing large economy. We have sound macroeconomic fundamentals. We have a robust public finances. We have strong manufacturing and export growth. We are the top FDI destination. We are a leader in climate change. All this is the developmental agenda. That is the political narrative that we are putting out. Our bold and ambitious reforms are driving our economic development. We are the fastest growing large economy. We are the #1 smartphone data consumer. We are the #1 global fintech adopter. We are #2 in a range of things. We've been able to create the third best ecosystem. We are the largest energy consumer. We are #3 as an economy by PPP in purchasing power parity. And we are poised towards becoming a high income country by 2047. Now, when India takes over presidency, this is the first time that we will be in the world for the first time